Acceptance, a fading reaction to our physical limitations, by Eternal England. If you have taken a wrong turning, then to go forward does not get you any nearer. If you are on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the right road, and in that case, the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive man. I think if you look at the present state of the world, it's pretty plain that humanity has been making some big mistake. We're on the wrong road, and if that is so, we must go back. Going back is the quickest way on. C.S. Lewis. I'm becoming more and more convinced by the day that the root cause of our modern unhappiness is our unwillingness to accept the facts of reality and the constraints these facts place on us. Perhaps this denial of reality stems from the progression of science. It may sound paradoxical, but as we learn more about material reality in a granular detail which is unnatural to us, yes, unnatural, even the most ardent fan of science must admit that the human eye was not designed to see the things that it has now become possible to see. We begin to believe what is not obvious. We begin to trust in the abstract more than in our senses. We lose touch with what is immediately relevant to our experience, and consequently relegate immediate experience to a subordinate position relative to the abstract. Perception and relevance. As an angsty teenager, I used often to ponder the question of why exactly we perceive what we perceive and do not perceive what we do not. After reading much of H.P. Lovecraft's fiction, I thought of his terrifying deities who are so beyond us that we cannot comprehend them, and the fact that they often do not even take any notice of us humans. One day I was sitting in my garden, and I noticed some ants on the path, carrying tiny sticks and bits of leaves somewhere, and the thought struck me, how seldom we even notice that they are there. I thought some more. Do ants notice us? In the same way that the humans in Lovecraft's world are mostly unaware of the otherworldly deities which inhabit their reality, I suspect that ants probably do not notice us. In the same way that the gods of Lovecraft's world rarely take notice of the humans, we rarely take notice of ants. I believe that the insight that can be gained from this teenage existential dread stream of thought is this: a being's senses are acutely tuned to perceive only what is relevant to it, and what is not relevant is often simply not perceived at all. Psychology seems to make this clear. It is cliché to even mention the invisible gorilla experiment, but it really does prove the point that I'm making here. In the context of the task put to you, counting the number of times the white-shirted players passed the basketball, the presence of the gorilla, which is absurdly obvious to anyone not taking the task seriously, is not relevant, and so is not noticed. In the original experiment, roughly half of participants did not notice the gorilla. Whether you are religious or not, I believe I can convince you of my point that relevance literally determines what we see. From an evolutionary perspective, the calibration of the senses to overwhelmingly perceive only that which is directly relevant to survival would be an evolutionary benefit. What is relevant to a species is, of course, relative. Thus, different species would possess differing instruments of perception. Humans have no use for echolocation, thus that ability was never developed in humans. Blind fish, fish without eyes or without functional eyes, inhabit only the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean. Without use for sight, they either never developed it, or, by process of evolution, it was selected out as an unnecessary drain on energy resources. If we have been created by God, which I believe we have, then naturally God would bestow upon his creations the tools with which to best take their place in the world. A human is intended to see in the way which makes the most sense for the human to see, to best interface with God's creation. All this is to say that relevance seems to be the key factor in human perception. When we are looking for a specific tool, say a hammer, we do not look around us and think, hammer, ah yes, do we? We instead think, there, the hammer. It may sound like a trivial point, but I think it has large implications and reminds us that we are, despite being the rational animal, still an animal. When we encounter something potentially dangerous to us, we do not even notice what the danger is until after noticing the danger. We do not look at a huge spider, recognize it as a huge spider, and only then think, huge spider, oh shit. We see the danger, we freeze, and only after the adrenaline is already pumping do we recognize it as a huge spider. In simple terms, the relevance of an object is perceived before we even notice what the object is. Alienation. In the modern age, at our jobs and in our leisure time, we spend so much time on abstract tasks, answering emails, creating spreadsheets, playing video games, and occupy ourselves for a relatively small amount of time doing real things and living in the moment, compared to the majority of human history. This only serves to exacerbate the mind-body dualism we fall prey to in our society. Humans living in survival situations pre-civilization had not the luxury of pontificating and navel-gazing about abstractions which held no bearing on their lives. They were too busy fighting to survive. Precisely herein lies the problem. We are alienated and estranged from our bodies by the mode of existence modern society has created for us. As a result of this, we have fallen out of touch with what it means to be an animal in an unbending and dangerous physical world, and we don't like being reminded of our physical limitations. Think of the differences between the middle class and working class approaches to the issue of transgenderism. The middle class person will often obfuscate and appeal to abstractions. Gender is a social construct, it's their lived reality. Who are you to tell somebody who or what they are? The working class person, however, who generally earns a living performing some kind of manual labour task, plumbing, building, gardening, farming, etc., has no problem calling a spade, or in this case, a bloke. In other words, the more conscious time one spends in material reality, as opposed to the world of abstractions, the more clearly one can see the objective truth which is ever more obscured by modern-day denials of reality. I tried to explain the concept of non-binary identity to my father once, and it simply did not compute. This is not because he's stupid, far from it, but he inhabits the real world. He doesn't use social media, and he has spent his entire adult life working a labour job and looking after his children. Leftism is built upon a carefully constructed denial of reality, which is nonsensical to anybody who hasn't been indoctrinated into it. It is ironic, or perhaps it stems from a place of projection, that leftists critique conservatism as an ideology built on a social construction which blinds people to reality, when that is precisely what leftism offers, a distorted lens through which to pretend that 2 + 2 does not, in fact, equal 4, but whatever we collectively decide it needs to mean for liberation. The vast majority of the regular working-class public is conservative because adherence to reality has been made into a trait of conservatism by the left's insistence on denying reality. I do not hate trans-identifying people. In fact, I sincerely feel a great deal of compassion for them. I cannot imagine the anguish felt by those afflicted by the cognitive dissonance between what on one level you know you are and what you wish more than anything to be. Too often, we forget that the vast majority of trans-identifying individuals simply want to get on with their lives. The activists and trans-lobbying groups are the enemy, not individual trans-identifying people. But I feel that the way contemporary society attempts to address the issue of gender dysphoria is counterproductive and wrong. Modern sensibilities may make what I am about to say in the following paragraphs offensive, but I believe it to be true, so I will say it regardless. We are not separate from our bodies. Even the language we use is steeped in this mind-body dualism, to say our bodies as if we own them. We are our bodies. Your body is you. While we are gifted with consciousness, and that gift can be used to put our physical body to use in a variety of productive ways, and gives us the ability to shape our bodies as we wish within limits. We can diet, we can perform concentrated exercise to build certain parts while slimming others, etc. Ultimately, our bodies are an essential feature of our existence. That is to say, a man will always be a man. There is a paradox within leftism that I have been trying to tease out. Rather than viewing themselves as products of nature and existing within nature, leftists have a tendency to view themselves as being above the material world. They believe that material reality can be shaped in accordance with the will of the conscious subject. The paradox is in the simultaneous incessant virtue signalling about how we are destroying nature and using terms like cancer when describing how the world would be better off if we went extinct. As a conservative, I care deeply about nature. One of my greatest joys is going for a simple walk in the woods with my wife. The difference is that I do not consider myself to be outside of or above nature. I acknowledge that I am a product of nature, and that the superior intellect of humanity does not change this fact. I acknowledge that, with or without my approval, nature has given me unchangeable, essential characteristics without which I would not be me. I am fortunate enough to be quite satisfied with the characteristics I am. I say characteristics I am because I am my characteristics. C.S. Lewis, in his work The Abolition of Man, discusses the ancient Chinese concept of the Tao, which he describes as the reality beyond all predicates, the abyss that was before the Creator himself. It is nature, it is the way, it is the road, the way in which the universe goes on, the way in which things everlastingly emerge, stilly and tranquilly, into space and time. It is also the way which every man should tread in imitation of that cosmic and supercosmic progression, conforming all activities to the great exemplar. I think of the Tao as the natural rhythm and harmony of the universe. While we have the unique gift of being able to perform conscious labor to shape aspects of the world to meet our wants and needs, this ability only goes so far. There are limits. The fabric of reality is unshakable. The attempt to alter that which is outside of our control causes dissonance. As an aside, this is fundamentally why lying is wrong. In lying, one is knowingly attempting to misuse language to portray a distorted reality. Think of the natural ordering of the universe as an endless flowing stream. It would be much more enjoyable to go with the natural flow. You can attempt to swim against the current, but all you will do is exhaust yourself and become resentful of the flow for being contrary to your wishes, and you will never reach the end anyway. One may find the direction of the current unfair insofar as it is not the direction in which he wishes to swim, but nothing which is natural is unfair. Just as the lion is not evil for killing the zebra, the stream is not unjust in flowing in the direction which it will. So how does this fit into transgenderism? I believe that in the attempt to allow people, especially children, to live their truth or live authentically, modern society in fact is being neither truthful nor authentic. I think if people made less effort to swim against the natural current of the universe, they would find themselves much happier. The discordance of the mind is, after all, caused by living in discordance with the Tao. If you are a man, you should strive to act as a man does. If you are a woman, you should strive to act as a woman does. This does not mean, however, that there is anything wrong with a child being an effeminate boy or a boyish girl. Masculine and feminine ideals are, after all, both defined by their averages. No man entirely embodies masculinity, and no woman entirely embodies femininity. The point is that the effeminate boy and the boyish girl are just that and nothing more, an effeminate boy and a boyish girl, and any attempt to pretend that their interests or natural tendencies define them more than the material reality of their essential characteristics is a lie. What happened to the previous iteration of feminism, which strove for acceptance of men and women, regardless of how masculine or feminine they are? The feminism which said, it doesn't make you less of a man to like ballet, or the colour pink, or rom-coms, and it doesn't make you less of a woman to drink beer, play sports, or enjoy hunting. Now we have arrived at the point where gender norms have become the standard by which the claim is made that you literally are the opposite gender if you enjoy things typically associated with that gender, but enjoying wearing dresses or the colour pink does not a woman make. Naturally, people are upset when the hand they have been dealt stops them from becoming what they wish to become. This is a shame. But to pretend that subjectivity can be given primacy over objective reality is folly, and moreover it is dangerous. Imitating something which you cannot be will not cure your pain, it will only exacerbate it. The cure for the discordance caused by the disparity between what you are and what you want to be is acceptance. Accept what you are, and strive to be the very best version of that you can be. Go for a walk in a forest, do some gardening, take a break from social media, touch grass. Do not waste time and energy in swimming against the unchanging, unchangeable current in futile desperation. Accept the universe, accept your place within it, and live as you were always intended to live. Thank you for listening.